Hello, welcome to the Irreverent Reader. So now that I have my incense lit and it smells lovely in my room, in my library, we're going to talk about a book. Tonight's book is On Bullshit by Harry G. Frankfurt. And this was a little book that I found at a half-price bookstore, and I had never heard of Harry G. Frankfurt. I had never heard of this book, but as soon as I saw it, that it's tiny, it's little, see it's very little, that it's tiny, and I saw its title, I had to have it. So Harry G. Frankfurt is an emeritus professor, a professor emeritus of philosophy at Princeton University. He has a very long career. He's a very interesting man to listen to. I highly recommend that you look him up and you watch interviews. There's a good one from The Daily Show with Jon Stewart from shortly after this was released, I believe. I will link some of the videos in the description, and I will put a card in one of these spots, either here or here. I don't know which one it was. It's very confusing. On Bullshit was originally an article. It was released in an academic journal, and it was just an essay. I mean, it's still just an essay, but then it was re-released or released in a different format as part of a book in 1988. And from there, somehow, it gained a cult following. Not a cult like witchcraft, but a cult following. And in 2005, Princeton University decided that it had enough of a demand that they would release it in this tiny little hardback that I adore. It's just so cute. And where would you keep a tiny, adorable book called On Bullshit? Would you keep it on your library shelves? Because I don't. I don't keep it on my shelves. You keep it in the bathroom, obviously. So anytime one of my guests needs to use the restroom, say you're over here for a dinner party or a barbecue, and you need to use the restroom, when you walk into my bathroom, what will you see in front of you? On Bullshit. It's just, come on, it's perfect. So we're going to read a little bit of it, a few snippets, not a bunch, because it's short. We'll read a few snippets and I will talk a little bit about it and talk about a particular form of bullshit that I appreciate, and yeah, and hopefully we'll get in some taps and a few triggers here and there. One of the most salient features of our culture is that there is so much bullshit. Everyone knows this. Each of us contributes his share. Most people are rather confident of their ability to recognize bullshit and to avoid being taken in by it. So the phenomenon has not aroused much deliberate concern, nor attracted much sustained inquiry. In consequence, we have no clear understanding of what bullshit is, why there is so much of it, or what function it serves. And we lack a conscientiously developed appreciation of what it means to us. In other words, we have no theory. From there, he goes into what are the best ways to determine the definition of bullshit. He talks about the Oxford English Dictionary and some of the other lacking resources. But he gets to a part that I rather enjoy, and that is another worthwhile resource is the title essay in The Prevalence of Humbug by Max Black. I am uncertain just how close in meaning the word humbug is to the word bullshit. Of course, the words are not freely and fully interchangeable. It is clear that they are used differently. But the difference appears on the whole to have more to do with consideration of gentility and certain other rhetorical parameters than the strictly literal modes of significance that concern me most. It is more polite as well as less intense to say humbug than to say bullshit. For the sake of this discussion, I shall assume that there is no other important difference between the two. Black suggests a number of synonyms for humbug, including the following: balderdash, claptrap, hokum, drivel, buncombe, imposture, and quackery. The list of quaint equivalents is not very helpful, but Black also confronts the problem of establishing the nature of humbug more directly, and he offers the following formal definition. Humbug: deceptive misrepresentation, short of lying, especially by pretentious word or deed, of somebody's own thoughts, feelings, or attitudes. So from there, he goes on to break down the different pieces of that definition and how they relate between humbug and bullshit. Let me read that definition to you one more time. Humbug: deceptive misrepresentation, short of lying, especially by pretentious word or deed, of someone's own thoughts, feelings, or attitudes. It's not lying, but it is deception, and it has less to do with facts than it does with attitudes, feelings, and thoughts. Sounds like bullshit to me. I think the most important part of the breakdown is in the importance of the differentiation between bullshit and lying. So, it is easy to think of familiar situations by which Black's account of humbug appears to be unproblematically confirmed. Consider a 4th of July orator who goes on bombastically about our great and blessed country whose founding fathers, under divine guidance, created a new beginning for mankind. This is surely humbug. As Black's account suggests, the orator is not lying. He would be lying only if it were his intention to bring about in his audience beliefs that he himself regards as false. Let me read that one more time. Okay. He would be lying only if it were his intention to bring about in his audience beliefs that he himself regards as false concerning such matters as whether our country is great, whether it is blessed, whether the founders had divine guidance, and whether what they did was in fact to create a new beginning for mankind. But the orator does not really care what his audience thinks about the founding fathers or about the role of a deity in our country's history or the like. At least, it is not an interest in what anyone thinks about these matters that motivates his speech. It is clear that what makes 4th of July oration humbug is not fundamentally that the speaker regards his statements as false. Rather, just as Black's account suggests, the orator intends these statements to convey a certain impression of himself. He is not trying to deceive anyone concerning America's history. What he cares about is what people think of him. He wants them to think of him as a patriot, as someone who has deep thoughts and feelings about the origin and the mission of our country, who appreciates the importance of religion, who is sensitive to the greatness of our history, whose pride in the history is combined with humility before God, and so on. So you see the importance here. This is what I think is the most important instance or fact or piece of the definition. It's not lying. Lying means that you want to block the truth. You want to blind your listener to the truth. You're specifically concerned with conveying a falsehood. You could be conveying a falsehood when it comes to bullshit or to humbug. You could be, but it's not your primary goal. You could also be telling the truth. Your primary goal when dealing in bullshit is to evoke in your listener a particular opinion or belief in a persuasive matter. So let's take, this is where, I'm going to put this down for a second. Take, for instance, when you enter a shop. You go into a shop and a salesperson greets you. And the salesperson says, "Welcome to this store." And one of two things happens. So the salesperson might say to you, "How are you today? Can I help you with anything?" And you'll answer with 2 words, 2 or 3 words. "I'm fine, thanks." Now, those 3 words, it does not matter whether or not they're true. You could be having a great day. You could be totally fine, and you could totally appreciate the fact that they asked you. Or you could be having a horrible day, and you really just wish they would get out of your face. The words themselves are not important. It's how you say it. And now, also, the salesperson, they don't care how you feel. They don't care if you're having a good day. They don't really want to know how you are. What's happening here is a scripted interaction between 2 members of a particular society that everyone agrees on. Everyone knows that the salesperson does not care how you are. And everyone knows that you're probably not fine. But everybody agrees that this is the script we will follow. Now, the 2 directions this could go. 1, you say, "Fine, thanks. I am really looking for something X, Y, and Z." That is a cue to the salesperson that you need help. Or you may not even say, "I'm looking for X, Y, and Z." You may just continue to interact with them. That is a cue to them that they are welcome in your space. Or you could say, without eye contact, Yeah, fine, thanks. This is a cue to them that you would like for them to go away. You don't want anything to do with them. You can handle shopping all by yourself. That's usually what I say. So these are not sincere interactions. They're scripts. They're scripts that are dictated not just by habitual interaction. I mean, that helps. I mean, it's something that works and we have agreed on it, and this is how we will continue to do this until it no longer works. But it goes further back than that. In this competitive society, this sales-driven, corporate consumerist society that we live in, a salesperson's income is based on whether or not you buy something. And whether or not you buy something frequently has a lot to do with how you feel in the moment. So we have formulated over time these interactions that ensure the salesperson makes a sale, ensures the salesperson isn't fired for being rude, make sure that the customer is comfortable at all times. You know, we have the whole saying, the customer is always right. That comes from consumerism. That comes from this capitalist, competitive system that we have. People from other countries come to the United States and they're surprised by how nice the salespeople are until they find out that it's completely false and it's not real. This isn't the way it works everywhere. This is how it works here. There are cultural reasons for the development of this customer service script and the competition in the marketplace, corporate culture, corporate politics, customer satisfaction. They've all played a role in the growth and development of this particular script. And we understand when the other person's role is changed. But if it's changed outside of the established scripts, then we encounter people blowing up in retail establishments. Can I speak to your manager? That sort of thing. But overall, the interaction itself is bullshit. From beginning to end, the salesperson does not care how you are. You don't actually want to tell the salesperson how you are. The salesperson just wants to know whether or not they need to help you, and you just want to express whether or not you would like for them to go away. And then, when it's time to leave the store, there is another script that we follow at the cash register. Did you find everything okay? Yes, I did. Even if you didn't. Does anybody ever say, no, I didn't, actually. You were out of my preferred paper plates? I've never heard anybody say that, and I've been a cashier before. We follow scripts. It's all bullshit. But does that make it bad? I think that within this particular example, that bullshit is just a symptom. It's a symptom of the overall process, the problems that are much deeper. For instance, like our insistence that salespeople live off of their commission. That is a bad idea. It is hard to live off of commission. I've done it unsuccessfully, and it's difficult. So the bullshit itself is not bad, but it is up to us to recognize the bullshit so that we can figure out what motivates the bullshit. And if we can figure out the motivation for the bullshit, then we can figure out the actual cause, the problem that needs to be fixed within that situation. So, BS is fake, but not necessarily false. The interaction between the salesperson and the customer is not real, but it is useful. Now, I think there are definitely some cases where bullshit is useful. But I believe that he disagrees. This is the crux of the distinction between him, the liar. Him in this scenario is the bullshitter, is a person who speaks bullshit. Okay? This is the crux of the distinction between him and the liar. Both he and the liar represent themselves falsely as endeavoring to communicate the truth. The success of each depends on deceiving us about that. But the fact about himself that the liar hides is that he is attempting to lead us away from a correct apprehension of reality. We are not to know that he wants us to believe something he supposes to be false. The fact about himself that the bullshitter hides, on the other hand, is that the truth values of his statements are of no concern, are of no central interest to him. What we are not to understand is that his intention is neither to report the truth nor to conceal it. This does not mean that his speech is anarchically impulsive, but that the motive guiding and controlling it is unconcerned with how the thing about which he speaks truly are. So, he's not concerned with telling us the truth or not. He is concerned with making sure that we understand something about him, not about the truth, but about him. It's rhetorical. We're going to read just the final bit, the very last few pages, and I really recommend that you guys go follow the links in the description, the card at the end, and you should listen to Professor Frankfurt speak about all of this himself. He gets so passionate about it, and he has so many more points, and he's really talked about it in depth at this point. So just the last little bit here. The contemporary proliferation of bullshit also has deeper sources in various forms of skepticism which deny that we can have any reliable access to an objective reality, and which therefore reject the possibility of knowing how things truly are. This anti-realist doctrine undermines confidence in the value of disinterested efforts to determine what is true and what is false, and even in the intelligibility of the notion of objective inquiry. One response to this loss of confidence has been a retreat from the discipline required by dedication to the ideal of correctness, to a quite different sort of discipline, which is imposed by pursuit of an alternative ideal of sincerity. Rather than seeking primarily to arrive at accurate representations of a common world, the individual turns toward trying to provide honest representation of himself. Convinced that reality has no inherent nature, which he might hope to identify as the truth about things, he devotes himself to being true to his own nature. It is as though he decides that since it makes no sense to try to be true to the facts, he must therefore try instead to be true to himself. But it is preposterous to imagine that we ourselves are determinate and hence susceptible both to correct and incorrect descriptions, while supposing that the ascription of determinacy to anything else has been exposed as a mistake. As conscious beings, we exist only in response to other things, and we cannot know ourselves at all without knowing them. Moreover, there is nothing in theory, and certainly nothing in experience, to support the extraordinary judgment that it is the truth about himself that is the easiest for a person to know. facts about ourselves are not peculiarly solid and resistant to skeptical dissolution. Our natures are indeed elusively insubstantial, notoriously less stable and less inherent than the nature of other things. And insofar as this is the case, sincerity itself is bullshit. So, what he's saying there at the end is that if you are more concerned with convincing others of your determined self than you are of understanding the facts of the reality of our world, then you are mistaken about what's important. Because we as humans cannot be constant. We cannot be determinate. We experience pieces of life and then we change. That's what we do. We have experiences and we change. We either grow or we devolve. But either way, you're changing. And so therefore, this idea that, say, a politician or a television personality has a persona that is themselves, that is firm, that is substantial, and you can count on that person to be this way, is bullshit. That's not real. People cannot be determinate. People change. That's why people can be so disappointing at times, but that's also why they can surprise us so beautifully. And I like to think for myself that is that I conduct myself in the world in a way that is flexible. I'm always willing to change. I've changed a lot. I've changed political parties. I've changed religions. I've changed my mind about pretty much everything at some point or another. I've held many different opinions. And a lot of people see that as flaky, but I see it as responsive. I see it as a reaction to finding out how the world really works. I go through life, I have an experience, and I allow experiences to change me. And you should too. And it's okay that you're changed. It's important that you're changed. You should grow. You should learn. Because anything else is bullshit. So I'm adding something on at the end. Because I forgot to tell you. One, I forgot to tell you to like and subscribe because I'm a good little YouTuber, and if you like this video, then you should, click the like button, click the subscribe button, and ding the little bell. But I also forgot to tell you that it's not the only one. So, I haven't read this one yet. I just found it like a month ago, and so once I've read this and I've dug into this essay, there will be a video on this one too.